Shanahan's Woody's World. Today I want to talk about the Institute.
Huh.
And you go, what? Well, I'm writing a column for Sunday, and I started thinking about the Aspen Institute. And you go, Rockies? Aspen Institute? So the purpose of that was the Aspen Institute, for those of you that don't know, is in Aspen. And it's an institute, but it's more like a symposium. It's made up of great leaders from around the country, business leaders, people who have been in the arts and have accomplished a lot. It's made up of former presidents of the United States. And they gather on several occasions and either listen to speakers or they discuss issues of the day. Now, what does that have to do with the Rockies? We've talked about this week, and I asked Les Shapiro, what can we do? We've established that what people think of Dick Monfort, what people think of the starting rotation. But given that we're not going to call for a boycott, and if you wear a T-shirt that has something that's anti-Rockies, they will make you leave or take off the T-shirt. There's no freedom of speech at Coors Field. So I don't know what else you can do. You can stop buying beer. You can stay outside. I've heard people say, well, stay out till after the opening pitch, or stand up until something happens. And there are all sorts of ideas. Well, I think we have to approach this from an entirely different direction. One of my joys in life is reading about and watching documentaries and movies about the Enigma machine and how the British broke the code in World War II. And I won't bore you, but there's a new movie out that's been out for a year, The Imitation Game. And it was nominated for Academy Award, and it's an actor who played Sherlock Holmes on television, was nominated for Academy Award. Well, I watched it for the first time because it's now available on pay-per-view. And I watched it, and I'd watched the movie Enigma and stuff, and it brought me to this Woody's World today. That was an impossible situation. How could you break a German code that had every day differently 150 billion combinations, that they felt like if they were trying to solve one letter at a time, it would take them 20,000 years to solve one letter. And it was an impossible task. Well, what's an impossible task? Winning at altitude. The Rockies winning. Okay, well, get rid of the owners and the president, or have the owner fire the president, get a whole new team in here. Well, let's look at how you deal with it. Aspen Institute, you bring together physicists, engineers, mechanical engineers. You bring in people who graduated from Harvard. You bring in people who are brilliant, former Major League Baseball players and managers who were around the game for a long time. You gather them, as the Aspen Institute does, and you address the issue of how can you make Mile High an advantage for the Rockies, a disadvantage for other teams, how players can play here, how the Rockies can dominate here, and what are the solutions. And I use it as an example, one I'd never heard from Nomar Garcia-Parra the other day, who said, put giant misters around the ballpark. And I said, what would that do? And he said, it would create fake humidity in the stadium, and that would make the pitchers be able to break their curveballs off. And I thought, that's brilliant. And I continue to think about that I think if you brought brilliant people who maybe are outside the world of scientists, who are outside. That's what they did with Enigma in World War II. They hired crossword puzzle workers. They hired chess masters. Why not bring in a chess master and say, what would be your solution? So I'm writing about that on Sunday, and I guess I'm promoting it, but I also think it's important that maybe enough that Benjamin will follow up on it someday, that actually there are ways they won't listen to the media. Dick Monfort won't miss it. And you got a new general manager who's saying, we don't talk to the players about the altitude. Well, that's an attitude his predecessor had. I think that if you bring in brilliant minds and put them in a room together, and it's a symposium for several days, I think you could come up with some great solutions to how the Rockies could play at altitude. I'm Woody Paige, and that's my opinion. Woody's World, as I said, sponsored by Shanahan Steakhouse. Treat your family this weekend, this Sunday, to a special meal, Easter meal at Shanahan's. You can, of course, get the steak and seafood, but how about the special kids menu that's been created by Mark Starron and his staff? You can get a filet, special kids filet, fish and chips. I can imagine how good the fish and chips would be at Shanahan's with those fries they have. Sliders with a side, lobster mac and cheese, trust me, and dessert. Make a reservation today. Do it quickly because they're going to be sold out. ShanahanSteakhouse.com.